It's the second time in 13 months the area has experienced severe flooding. Many local residents blame the Environment Agency for not acting quickly enough. They say a lack of leadership and mismanagement has meant that homes weren't pumped in time. Lord Chris Smith is chairman of the Environment Agency. He has been defending their work.
These are staff who over the course of the last 2 months have been working their socks off night and day right the way through Christmas and through New Year. They've been running pumping stations, they've been erecting demountable defences, they've been coordinating information for the emergency services, they've been providing warnings where they're needed, they've been clearing blockages, they have been working their hearts out, and in the process they have protected over 1 million homes.
On Monday's programme, while we were on air, the Environment Secretary Owen Paterson was met by angry residents as he visited the Somerset Levels, one of the worst areas hit by flooding. He wants the relevant agencies involved to provide a long-term solution within the next 6 weeks. But already some of the proposed solutions are being met with hostility. Local farmers and MPs say the government and the Environment Agency were both warned a year ago that two rivers, the Parrett and Tone, could cause really severe flooding unless they were properly dredged. But the agency maintains dredging is not the main solution.
Dredging would probably make a small difference. It's not the comprehensive answer that some people have been claiming it is. It's why we began back in October, November last year to dredge some of the particular choke points on the River Tone and the River Parrett, because it can, I believe, make a contribution to solving some of these problems.
All right,
it's not a wholesale solution, and we need to look at a whole range of other things as well.
Chris Smith, the head of the Environment Agency. The environmental group WWF says farmers should be forced to capture rainfall on their land, flooding their own fields to protect towns and villages downstream. Farmers who don't comply could potentially lose their grants. This despite 20,000 acres of farmland being underwater for the past month. The National Farmers Union strongly opposes that idea. Well, our reporter Sarah Ransom is back in Moorland in Somerset with some of those whose homes and businesses are still affected by the flooding. Hayley, hello, good morning. Hi, Hayley, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Bit damp, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, you sound remarkably upbeat considering what Sarah has just described in your home. It must be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, it is really. I mean, we're going to be, well, we've been having problems for quite some time now. The children have actually taken to taping the toilet seat up so that they don't forget and use it, because a couple of weeks ago they flushed it, and we had what I can only describe as a miniature Chernobyl, and all I heard was screaming and running down the hallway. So yeah, that wasn't very nice at all, and that's when we decided that we had to get the outside loo brought in, really, so that we had somewhere to go.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you and your father-in-law, Chris, in a moment in a lot more detail, just to get an insight into what has become, I assume, the daily grind of trying to live with this water in the bottom of your home and all over your garden, and also more to Brian as well, who has two businesses which have been impacted by the floods. We'll speak to you more in just a second after we've brought listeners the travel. Right, let's continue our conversation with Hayley and Chris Matthews in Somerset, and also Bryony Sadler as well. And the reason that we would like to talk to them today is to get an insight into their daily life after they have been flooded for 4 weeks. So Hayley, Chris, when you get up in the morning, what is it that you need to do first?
Well, my first job is to check the pumps in this house we're standing in now. I mean, we've got up to 5 pumps going at any one time. The house is flooded, but it's just a case of damage limitation, really. And whether we'll be successful, I know not. But we've succeeded in keeping the level in the house down about 3 inches lower than the outside. So that's my first task.
Okay, well I suppose that's something you can see that you're doing something constructive. Does that help keep you motivated?
Well, it does, but I mean, it's getting very wearing now. I mean, the point is, you see, we're in a situation where we have high tides the weekend. We're in a situation where if we get a lot more rain, the Athelney spillway, which you may or may not have heard of, but you'll get 30 metric tons a second coming over there, and the pumps that sort of surround us in the pumping stations locally can only shift about 12 tons a second. So you can see we're all living on the edge, really.
Yes. And Chris, do you live there with Hayley, or have you moved in there from your own place?
No. We our bungalows are next door to each other.
Right, got you.
So my wife Val and I live in one bungalow. Hayley, her husband James, and 2 children. Sam and Amy live in the next bungalow, and my daughter Jane and her daughter Louise lived until recently in the house we're standing in now, but they had to abandon things when the water came in. And it's ground flooding, you see. The water comes up through the floor. It's absolutely horrendous because you can put boards over the doors and everything else, but doesn't matter what you do, it comes up through the floor, and you feel totally helpless.
Hayley, how do your children get to school?
It's a bit like army manoeuvres, really. I get up first thing in the morning and get a good hour's head start so I can get everything sorted as best I can. And then basically they both go to different schools, and now the buses and the taxis will only come so far. And so what I've been doing is I've been putting them in the vehicle, and then I take my son up the road to where the old school was and drop him off there to a friend where the taxi will pick him up.
And we're doing this because not only are we cut off one end of the village, we have one road in and one road out. And sorry, this is Bryony Sadler.
Hi Bryony, how are you?
But the other problem is with the school run, and as Hayley's saying, and I'm sorry, I just wanted to point out this to people who can't see, that the road out is totally underwater and will be for ages, but the other end of the village, why the taxis and the buses won't come to pick up the school children, is there's another puddle at the other end of the village that you can drive through if you've got a 4x4, but if you've got a normal car, the whole village is parking normal cars at the other side of this puddle, buying waders and having to wade through it just to get back to their homes at night, and vice versa with the children. Sorry, Hayley, you carry on.
No,
So it's just total disruption, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a nightmare. We're all having to alter our shifts if we can at work, just to sort of do everything, because the taxis and the buses, they normally just pick the kids up and drop them off, whereas now we're having to do this, and it's taking time out of our already completely disturbed busy time. We every time you turn your back on the water, it seems to have changed or altered or come up somewhere different, and it's just adding stuff to our day that's, it's making it more complicated.
Can I ask you about washing? Are you standing at the sink and sort of hand washing yourself? Is that how you're doing it with yourselves?
No. I'm actually having to travel 15 miles up to my parents who live in Wellavington to have a shower. And we're taking all our clothes up there to them as well. I mean, they're in their 80s and they're helping out as much as they can, but it's also extra pressure on them too, because we're having to kind of descend on them constantly just so that we can get clean.
Yeah.
And it's not right. It's just wrong. You can't wash your dishes in your sink. We're eating off of paper plates and things, which again isn't really that good for the environment. So
Bryony,
it's all a mess.
You're a mobile hairdresser, and I know that some of you, the people whose hair you do, it's on the other side of the water, so to speak. Can you do that longer journey round to get to them to earn some money or not?
We are in a catch-22 situation. I am totally grateful to my clients, and I always will be. They are an amazing bunch of people, but the longevity of this is, my route round to cut somebody's hair for £10 is £20 worth of petrol. This could have been prevented. They could have done something about this. We keep going on about this, and we will carry on going on. We've got a 6-week window now to enable the pressure on the government to make sure that something is produced for them, this plan that they're after. But we need to keep going, because they want a long term, which is years down the road, a medium term and a short plan. And obviously the short plan is the dredging, which will help us immediately, but at the moment we still need pumping, we still need to keep going. We need to support the guys on the ground because they have absolutely busted their guts for us to be able to just keep living here. I know our lives sound upside down, but they they're working, they're helping as much as they can, but it's the whole mismanagement of the system, and that what they're saying is taken to the management, and then the management isn't passing it on, and then
do you mean the
management
do you mean the management of the Environment Agency, do you mean?
Yes, I do. They just aren't, and they're not even relaying that back up to government. So the whole thing needs looking at as a big, broader picture. And from now on, people's insurance. I know that was raised last year as well.
This property we're standing in now is not insured this time round. I mean, after last year's event, we tried through the broker to get someone to insure it against flooding, and no way.
Really?
So it's a total loss, really, as far as we're concerned.
And the people that have got insurances, some of them, their excesses are ridiculous.
I bet.
One person, £35,000.
Oh, well,
I mean,
it's just a waste of time.
How can you afford that?
So it's a complete utter waste of time, yeah. And I mean, a lot. I think the property next door to where we are now, they have quite a large excess on their policy, and. So all this talk in the press and from the government about, people being able to get insurance is totally false, really. It's no use to us on the ground.
I want to know if you think that you have been forgotten by the Environment Agency and indeed the Department for the Environment, or that they know what's going on, but they can't somehow get a grip of the situation and get their act together to help you.
I can say the Environment Agency are peddling the same story now that they've peddled for years. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when the river was dredged with the drag lines and so forth. And I mean, nothing. This house we're standing in now did not flood until last year.
Really?
And I have to say the house is about 150 years old. So my wife's lived here all her life, her father before her. And the place, just water got close, as far as the back garden. We're not naive enough to think the levels won't have floods. But this house has been standing here for 150 years and never flooded until last year.
Yes, because I've got a text message here from a listener saying, look, this area is below sea level. So, the clue is the Somerset Levels, the clue is in the name and has been flooded since time began. But clearly you're saying it absolutely hasn't.
This is we do live on the Somerset Levels, but we are not a natural floodplain. That is not, we are totally being misconceived in all public eyes from the Environment Agency, who are out there saying that, oh, well, you're a natural floodplain and this is what's meant to happen. If they looked after our river courses and the upper catchments and where they're building on new areas and actually held back some of the water and did some tree planting and any of the other things that can come into this is a totally managed system, because our riverbanks are, some of them are 5, 6, 7 foot high above your head, that need to be dredged and need to be looked after, and the whole system needs to be looked after, because this is that we produce 12% of England's food, and there's massive amount of water and farmland all underwater, and it's just very destroying. And this could have been prevented, but the mismanagement and the misinformation needs to carry on being publicised and getting out there so that they get a true picture.
And one thing that does need to be said, that we're there are grants paid. We're living in on land that's grants are paid for the wildlife to survive and everything else. And I mean, you recently heard all the fuss about the badger cull. I'm sure the Environment Agency have done everybody's work for them. They've drowned nearly everything on the moor. And vast sums of money have been paid to the farmers under higher level stewardship schemes to maintain just very low water levels. So, it's a complete and utter farce, really.
Okay.
The Environment Agency say that they they do their bit for wildlife and everything else, but they've totally forgotten about wildlife down here, I'm afraid, and the humans as well, I might add.
Thank you all very
much. The whole village, though, is built on the highest ridge, if you have a look at it. And the whole area has been managed by man since
800 years.
For 800 odd years. I mean, the monks actually dug the whole place, the thing out by hand. And only 20 or 30 years ago, there are pictures on the internet where you can see where people are doing it, and they're hand digging the riverbanks. With today's advancements and all of the machinery and everything that man has got, surely it's easier now than it ever has been before to maintain this and to stop this happening again.
I mean, the whole point is really that we're living in a country that's supposed to be sort of high-tech. The government talk about high-speed rail track and all that entails. They can't even keep the water in the rivers.
The Dutch can. The Dutch can. And that's the men we need to learn from. They came in 2000, and they came in and they got their pumps in and they put it into retreat. They absolutely blasted the water back off the moors. And you know what? These guys, they need to come in again, and they need to help us, and they need to put us on the right track. And then, when we're up and running, it'll all be good.
Okay.
I was just going to say that obviously at the moment we are still on a state of emergency. So if anybody comes back and says, oh, well, who's funding this? The money is there because we are classed as an emergency. Get on with it.
Thank you all very much for coming on the programme. What an insight. Hayley Matthews, her father-in-law Chris Matthews, in their property, which is below, the ground level is below water, as you heard, and Bryony Sadler as well. Her business and home have been impacted by the floods.